Oh, yeah. Baby. Yeah, you go over. Yeah, yeah. Good idea.
You wanted to win, you wanted to good. Oh, he's killing it.
Yeah, he did all right.
He's all right. He did well.
I'll find somewhere. Oh, anyway, the other company in front.
first in the world, go forth with your fears. Remember, a price must be paid. Be always too soon, be never too fast. The time when all bets must be laid. Beware of the darkness, be kind to your children. Remember the woman who waits, and the house you live in will never fall down if you pity the stranger who stands at your gate. caught by the gale and you fall under sail, beware of the dangers below. And the song that you sing should not be too sad, be sure not to sing it too slow. You come in the face of all common disgraces and know what they're doing it for. And the house you live in will never fall down if you pity the stranger stands at your door. When you're out on the road and feeling quite lost, consider the burden of fame. And he who is wise will not criticize when other men fail at the game. Beware of strange faces and dark, dingy places. Be careful while mending the law. And the house you live in will never fall down if you pity the stranger who stands at your door. When you're down in the dumps and not ready to deal, decide what it is that you need. Is it money or love? Is it learning to live? Or is it the mouth you must feed? Be known as a man who will always be candid on questions that do not relate. And the house you live in will never fall down if you pity the stranger who stands at the gate. And the house you live in will never fall down if you pity the stranger who stands at the gate.
Well, Bernie chose all of the music to play today, so that was a really lovely way to begin today's service with Gordon Lightfoot song, The House You Live In. A couple of things before we start. Could I invite you or ask you to switch off your phones or pop them onto silent if you haven't already done so? That would be wonderful. And you'll notice that there's some photos going to be scrolled through the service today. When planning for today, Bernie's family didn't think they had enough photos, but they actually did find some really great ones, and so they've decided just to have them slowly play while we have today's service. So obviously you can listen to his story and equate to some of the photos today. Well, good morning everyone and welcome, and thank you for being here this morning. I know that Bernie's family greatly appreciates the friendship and the support that surrounds them as we gather to celebrate his life. My name is Gina Brakey, and it really is such an honour to have been invited to lead today's farewell. It is my hope that every part of this service will honour Bernie in a meaningful way and truly reflect on the many things that made him the special and unique man that he was. Well, to everyone here in the chapel, welcome, and to those joining us via live stream, I hope you also feel a part of today's farewell. There are family and friends who can't be here in person, but we know that their thoughts and their love and their friendship are with Faye and her family today. Well, it is with sadness as we gather today, but it is with grateful hearts we remember and celebrate the life of Bernard William Bairns, or simply Bernie as he was known. A loving husband and father, a very proud poppy, and a respected friend. Today, memories will be shared, and you will all feel a sadness that Bernie is no longer a physical presence in our lives. However, in spending this time together comes the warmth of a life lived and a love and friendships shared, and memories that will live on long after we say farewell. Today, we will give thanks for Bernie's life, and we will honour his memory with this dedicated moment of warmth and much affection. Well, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the people who meant the most to Bernie. He was the devoted and loving husband of Faye, a loved and loving father of Scott and Crystal, father-in-law of Rodney and friend of Teresa, and a very proud poppy of Ashley, Hannah and Ava, whom he adored. Bernie was also a respected friend to many, which is obvious by today's attendance, and with his family, you were all an important part of his life. As each of you take this time to remember Bernie in your own special way, may you be warmly reminded of how much he has meant to so many. Well, summing up Bernie's life this morning is going to be a difficult thing to do, for no eulogy or story will ever truly capture his journey. No matter how well each of you may have known Bernie, our words today can never truly do him justice. Each of you here have shared different experiences with Bernie, and each of you have known him in different ways, and there are many things you have in common. In the years you have known him, your lives have been touched by his selfless and hardworking nature. He was easygoing and he loved to chat, and you have all shared in his love and his friendship. At only 68 years of age, Bernie has left us too soon, but knowing his struggles are over, I hope will bring you all some comfort. Bernie lived his life never wanting or needing a lot of fuss made of him, and after speaking to his family, they all agreed that we should keep today simple and sincere. Bernie's life is certainly one to be remembered fondly, and so today we will focus on happy memories and some great photos, and making this service a simple and sincere celebration of his life. While preparing for this morning, I recently met with Faye, Scott and Crystal, and they shared with me a little about Bernie and what he has meant to you all. One of the first things that I learned was how much family meant to Bernie, and in turn of how much they all adored and loved him. Bernie lived all of his life here in East Gippsland, and he was a familiar face to many. He worked for a number of businesses, and he made a name for himself as a hardworking, reliable and dedicated employee. Bernie was tough, he was a real goer, and he lived his life with integrity and honesty. And he certainly leaves behind a loving family who are grateful to have had so many special years with him in their lives. Well, just a little about Bernie's life as remembered by his family. Take a little trip down memory lane. Bernie was born in Sale to Jim and Jean Beams. He has a brother, Jeffrey, who is here today, and a sister, Marie, who is deceased. Bernie's family moved to Bairnsdale when he was young. He attended the local primary school and the Bairnsdale High School, and he played footy with a few clubs in the district: Snowy Rovers, Lindenow South and Bairnsdale. Bernie also followed Carlton in the AFL, but they haven't made him too happy in more recent years. Well, Bernie left school and began a bakery apprenticeship with Longhurst in Orbost, starting work very early and working very long days. In his late teens, Bernie met a local Buchan girl, Faye, and they were married in 1976. Scott and Crystal arrived. The family lived in Bairnsdale, and Bernie began a 38-year association working with Goodman's Nursery. Working with Goodman's was a very big part of Bernie's life, and the Goodman family were very good to him. Scott also worked there for close to 10 years, starting as a 16-year-old, and they looked after Bernie and his family like their own, something that I know Faye, Scott and Crystal are very grateful for. Well, as Darren Goodman's going to share with us a few more stories about that in a moment. As a reminder of how hardworking Bernie was, he also worked at the BP Servo in Bairnsdale on weekends while at Goodman's. But after leaving the nursery, he went to work at the Servo full-time, where Faye also helped him. For the past 10 years, both Bernie and Faye have collected trolleys from all over town for Safeway, and they have found them in all sorts of places, I was told. Bernie met lots of people with all of his jobs. He loved to chat with everyone he came in contact with, and his family told me everyone. And he was a familiar and friendly face to many. Crystal remembers when her dad was younger, he fancied himself as a bit of a runner, and he even competed in a few marathons. She told me that they would go with their dad to many cross-country and fun run events around East Gippsland. Bernie also played cricket and badminton, and for several years he played badminton with both Scott and Crystal when they were young. He was very fit and active. Bernie also loved cars, and an in-house family joke was the one time he had four new cars in 4 years. A Datsun 120Y, a Datsun 200B, a Sunny Wagon, and finally a Bluebird. Scott has also a great love of cars, something he inherited from his dad, and Bernie got a lot of enjoyment out of collecting and driving all of his cars over the years. Well, as young kids, Scott and Crystal remember their dad taking them to Lindenow to pick gherkins, although Scott doesn't think his sister picked too many, but he did love being outdoors with his kids. His job at Goodman's also meant that he got to spend a lot of time outside, and he developed over the years a very keen interest and knowledge of the horticultural side of the business. Once Bernie became a grandfather, he was the proudest poppy ever. Ashley, Hannah and Ava were his pride and joy, and he loved spending time with them all. Crystal told me that her dad would often turn up at her house. He wouldn't go inside, but instead he'd peek over the fence into Ashley's room and just simply watch her sleeping. He also loved taking them for walks all over town in the pusher, telling them about different birds and trees along the way. Bernie was very involved in his granddaughters' lives. He would visit Crystal's almost every day so he could see his girls. These were always very happy times for the whole family. Well, Bernie didn't drink. He was a fairly quiet and private man, and his life revolved around work and family. When Scott and Crystal were younger, Bernie would take off the whole month of September, and he and the family would head to the Northern Territory. They would stay in motels along the way, and his favourite places to visit were Kings Canyon and Alice Springs. He loved Central Australia, and it was always a fun and adventurous trip for the whole family. Well, Bernie loved driving so much that it was nothing for him and Scott to drive to Sydney for Chinese. On one visit for work with Goodman's, Bernie came across a little Chinese restaurant in the back of nowhere. He thought the food was fantastic, obviously, so much so that he and Scott would travel there and back from Bairnsdale just to eat the Chinese. Well, sitting around Crystal's kitchen table, there were many stories and memories shared. One of the things that Bernie will be remembered for is his easygoing nature. Nothing much ever fazed him. He was hardworking. He was a loyal and dedicated employee all of his life, and Faye told me that he loved to chat so much that he could talk the leg off a chair. He loved a good takeaway, and he and his family would also go out for tea often, whether it was to the Bowls Club, the Men's Club or the RSL. A few times a week they would all be together, and Bernie absolutely loved these times. He also loved music, and it's worth mentioning, as I have done, that he chose all of the music today. Particular mention must be made, though, of the final piece of music, Ramble Tamble. Bernie wanted to be wheeled out of the chapel to this one. It's probably not your usual funeral music, but this is one that I hope his family hope will bring a smile to your face, and certainly one that Bernie would love to be finishing with today. Well, apparently Bernie was a bit of a rat bag as a young boy, but he grew into a hard-working man who was totally devoted to his family. Faye has been by Bernie's side through the thick and the thin, through all the good times and the not-so-good times, and she was there for him right to the very end. Bernie and Faye moved in with Scott after his diagnosis, and with Crystal's support and the palliative care team, Bernie was able to remain at home until his passing, which was his wish. The past 11 months haven't been easy, but Bernie was a real fighter. He never complained, and he was still cleaning Scott's gutters at home and pushing around trolleys until only a few weeks before he passed away. Everything in Bernie's life, he gave his best, and this determination remained with him until the very end. Well, Bernie leaves a lot of special memories, and I hope that today is a reminder to his family especially of the many wonderful years that they got to share with him. As I said, that's just a very quick snapshot of Bernie's life, and we won't be able to share everything today. But to continue some memories, and a very important part of Bernie's life, as I mentioned, was Goodman's. I'm going to ask Darren Goodman to come forward and share with us a few stories of Bernie. Thanks, Darren.
Thank you, Gina. First, my thanks to Faye, Scott and Crystal for inviting me to be involved today. I am roughly 7.5 years older than Bernie, and he used to enjoy reminding me of that quite often. Consequently, my memories of him go back further than his memories of me. My earliest memory goes back to the early 60s when I was a teenager and he was a primary school age child. The Beans family lived in Devon Road, Painesville, very close to the old Painesville football ground, now known as Gilston Reserve. On footy training nights, he would invariably be hanging around the club rooms, probably getting in the way, but he was there. And if there happened to be a pie night on, after training, he would line up multiple times for a pie and a bottle of soft drink. And I clearly recall one occasion when after dark his mother Jean came looking for him and took him home by the hand. Bernie developed a very good work ethic from a young age, and he was always very industrious. After he left school and became an apprentice baker, he also mowed lawns around Bairnsdale, and he was seriously into recycling, decades before it became common practice. I should point out, however, that this was not a desire by Bernie to save the planet, but rather a desire to get some extra income. As a result of his enterprise, while still a teenager, he was able to purchase the block of land on Bairnsdale Road, Bairnsdale, where the family's home would later be built. An outstanding achievement accomplished by few others at that age. Bernie came to work for us in July 1974 when he had been given a job by my late father at our family's fruit tree nursery business. At that time, I doubt that anyone considered he would remain in our employ for 38 years until 2011 when the business closed. His first year with us, 1974, was a lot like this year. It was an extremely wet year. So wet, in fact, that some paddocks were unable to use any sort of mechanical assistance to dig the trees. The ground was just too wet and boggy. Consequently, a lot of the crop had to be dug by hand, with our work team using garden spades. This was tiring, physical work performed under very trying conditions. I can remember mud flowing into the top of my gumboots on occasions. Bernie persevered, and eventually the weather pattern returned to a more normal cycle. In a relatively short time, it became apparent that Bernie had an appreciation and a feel for the husbandry required to produce good quality fruit trees. Over ensuing years, Bernie demonstrated a willingness to take on responsibility at the nursery. I don't recall an official announcement recognising his position as nursery foreman, but I think he took that role in the early 90s. Bernie demonstrated an aptitude to recognise a multitude of tasks requiring attention, put them in priority order, and to oversee their completion by the work team. My older brother Brian and I had full confidence in Bernie's ability to manage nursery operations. We could be absent from the workplace for extended periods, knowing full well that the nursery was in good hands. Having said all these complimentary things about Bernie, I should also point out that on some occasions he was not the most punctual for our 7:30am starts. However, at the end of the day, if there were important tasks nearly completed, he would stay back and see the work done. It was each winter when the trees were dormant and had been dug, graded, tied into bundles and heeled in that orders were made up for dispatch. This was an intense time as the dormancy window was relatively brief. It was not unusual to arrive at work in the morning and discover that Bernie, sometimes assisted by Faye and Scott, had strapped on their head torches and worked into the night to ensure that the following day's orders would be completed in time to be loaded and dispatched next day. To sum up, Bernie was very dependable, and he certainly had a great sense of humour. Our branch of the Goodman family was fortunate to have his services and to enjoy his friendship. I know he was good to his parents, Jim and Jean. He was proud of his family, to whom he provided love and support, and instilled in them a good work ethic. And above all, I know he absolutely adored his granddaughters, Ashley, Hannah and Ava. Rest in peace, Bernie.
Thank you, Darren. A little bit more of an insight, and fittingly, as you mentioned fruit trees, the photo came up in the background, so that was perfect. Yeah, perfect timing. Now, Ava's got a few thoughts of her poppy that she'd like to share with us today. So, would you like to come forward, Ava?
Hi all, said, I remind him of a song from long ago. I miss you, Poppy.
Thank you, Amy. That was beautiful. And I know she shared that on behalf of her, the other granddaughters as well. Beautiful memories. Now, if there is anyone that would like to come forward with a memory or a story, I know it's not an easy thing to do, there is a chance to do so. Bernie's family have arranged for refreshments at Bairnsdale Bowling Club, so we will be leaving here and then heading to the Lawn Cemetery, and directly from there we will obviously Faye and Bernie's family invite you to the Bairnsdale Bowling Club, which is a lovely way to continue sharing memories and stories in a less formal setting, and to obviously a lot of these photos are going to bring back a lot of memories of some fun times, and so if you can share them with Bernie's family, that would be wonderful. So on that note, while you are, obviously you have been looking at the photos, but while we just take this moment of reflection, a beautiful song, Annie's song, has been chosen to just sit quietly and reflect on Bernie's life. So please enjoy this moment of reflection.
You fill up my senses like a night in a forest, like the mountains in springtime, like a walk in the rain, like a storm in the desert, like a sleepy blue ocean. You fill up my senses, come fill me again. Come, let me love you, let me give my life to you. Let me drown in your laughter, let me die in your arms. Let me lay down beside you, let me always be with you. Come, let me love you, come love me give my life to you. Come, let me love you, come love me again. You fill up my senses like a night in a forest, like the mountains in springtime, like a walk in the rain, like a storm in the desert, like a sleepy blue ocean. You fill up my senses, come fill me again.
Well, I know I mentioned earlier that one of the proudest days was when Bernie became a poppy, but I know that I didn't mention earlier that one of his proudest days was walking Crystal down the aisle, and the photos of her wedding were just on there before, so very proud day. Family certainly meant everything to Bernie. Well, there's a poem on the inside cover of the booklet titled Let Me Go. They are words that I feel certain Bernie would want you all to know today. When I come to the end of the road and the sun has set for me, I want no rights in a gloom-filled room. Why cry for soul set free? Miss me a little, but not for long, and not with your head bowed low. Remember the love that we once shared. Miss me, but let me go. For this is a journey we all must take, and each must go alone. It's all part of the master plan, a step on the road to home. When you are lonely and sick at heart, go to the friends we know. Laugh at all the little things we used to do. Miss me, but let me go. Well, today's service has been a meaningful way to pay tribute to Bernie, and the memories shared make up just a small part of the sort of person he was to you all. Each of you here will remember the good times you've spent with Bernie, the things that you've learned from him and the memories that you have to keep close to your heart. Time stands still for just a moment as we acknowledge that Bernie has touched our lives and he has left an imprint in our hearts and in our minds. His passing has certainly left a void, but I hope that it gives you all some comfort knowing how much happiness you have each given him and of how much he really appreciated and dearly loved you all, especially the front row there. One final short verse is one I share on behalf of Bernie's proud and loving family. As we look back over time, we find ourselves wondering, did we remember to thank you for all that you've done for us, for all the times you were by our sides to help and support us, to celebrate our successes, to understand our problems and to accept our defeats, or for teaching us by your example the value of hard work, good judgment, courage and integrity. We wonder if we ever thanked you for the sacrifices you made and for simple things like laughter, smiles and good times that we shared. If we had forgotten to show you our gratitude for all of the things you did, we're thanking you now and we are hoping you knew all along just how much you meant to us. Well, today's service has been a day for fond and loving memories and will be remembered for many reasons, but mainly I hope it will be remembered by you all as a very special day in which you were able to pay your last respects and say a fond farewell to a man whom you were all privileged to have known. Bernie was never one to be in the spotlight, but today has certainly been his day to be remembered fondly and most proudly, and I'm sure if he could, he would thank each and every one of you for being such an important part of his journey. On behalf of Faye and her family, thank you again for being here to celebrate Bernie's life. And now we will leave with Ramble 10.
Come a little bit further. by here, we're going to turn to the right.
Yeah, pretty much. Like,